Well, that's where finishing David, because in today's passages, David dies. All right. So, in finishing David, we have not done the 23rd Psalm. Read that. Not that I can recall. So I thought I'm going to do that today.
That's a good way to end it.
And so, and I'm going to read it from the New English Bible. Because to me, to read it in a different translation sometimes really focuses my attention a little more. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall want nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the waters of peace. He renews life within me, and for his name's sake guides me in the right path. Even though I walk through a valley dark as death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy staff and thy crook are my comfort. Thou spreadst a table for me in the sight of my enemies. Thou hast richly bathed my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Goodness and love unfailing, these will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. Amen. All right, so the end of David's story is in 1 Kings. It's the beginning of 1 Kings. David's story was interesting as I went back and sort of recapped stuff, looked back over. David's story is the longest story about any one person in the whole Bible. Just the story of when he was king goes from 2 Samuel 11 through 24, so 13 chapters are just about when he was king. So
even longer than a story about Jesus, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And a couple other commentators, more than one, talked about how he really is a thread throughout a big majority of the Bible. Yeah. Well into the Old New Testament, including Paul. Paul talks about David also, refers to David too.
And Jesus gets his legitimacy from being from the house of David.
Yeah. And the house of David, direct lineage as far as being king, lasts until the Babylonians come in and overrun Israel, the southern kingdom, in 722, something like that. So several hundred years.
But he was sort of, wouldn't you say this was Israel's golden age under David? I mean, that was when they were all united, all the tribes were united under him.
At some point.
And they were able to withstand a lot of their enemies' attacks. So I feel like that's the reason David's so revered, is that this was when Israel was at its strongest.
Because it definitely was at its biggest, and so that would be the strongest. As they went from the Mediterranean over to, I don't know, it was much bigger.
Yeah.
And it was about the only time that all of and it wasn't during all of his kingship that the two kingdoms were united. So, yeah.
But for part of his kingship they were, and I just think that's why he's so famous, because he wasn't really a very good person, but he was
grown up Catholic. Okay.
Yeah.
David was not all that famous.
Really interesting.
No, he I knew very little about David. I probably knew more about. I definitely knew more about Moses and more about even Noah. Okay, but David was probably taught less than Solomon and Saul. Okay,
He's not a very good example.
What's that?
Yeah,
he's not a very good example.
Well, in the big picture, listening again, this is really the first time I've heard a lot of this.
Me too.
Okay, in the big picture, he comes across as just what an everyday human is. Some mistakes, some successes.
Yeah.
We laugh, we cry, we repent,
Yeah.
and we die. Okay.
Right.
So, but that's what, but, he was not a big person of stories or teachings growing up.
Catholic Church.
The only one that I really knew was the story of David and Goliath, and I didn't know that very much. I didn't know it accurate.
Well, I remember, actually, this was in college after I left Catholicism. We talked that I learned about the uniting of the uniting of Israel, okay, during its kingship. And, but that was just a short, probably 3 week, 5 week stint that I remember just now, bits and pieces, a lot of alcohol between then and now. But seriously, David was just another prophet, pretty much, and not a prophet, but I mean like that. He was just another person of the old. But we didn't learn much on the Old Testament anyway, and I don't,
Yeah.
And I didn't take the Old Testament courses when I was in college. I was a religion major, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
So I didn't take any Old
And
Testament
that's-
courses. I regret now that I did it.
actually remembering out loud, a couple of my Jewish friends, one was a roommate for a while. David was a very big figure.
He was to the Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
The Star of David is like the cross.
That is.
Yeah, the
Well,
Star of
and I
David.
learned something about the Star of David.
Oh yeah.
In the curse book, the Star of David was not a symbol for Judaism until the 19th century,
Really?
like 150 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't until it was first used, that the 5-pointed star, in medieval times with medieval Christians and the Islamic faith.
Interesting.
And so about that time, it did sort of get associated with by the Jews with David or Solomon or neither of them.
Huh.
So when that 5-pointed star first started being used, it really wasn't firm. The 14th century, it started being referred to as the shield of David.
Huh.
And then in the 19th century, it was officially adopted as a symbol
Of
of Judaism, like the cross is for Christianity.
Interesting.
So it's a really relatively
New.
symbol. Yeah.
And then it took on with the Holocaust. It took on a whole nother meaning.
A whole nother layer of usage. Right.
Yeah, I majored in religious studies too. I think I did take the Old Testament, but I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah.
You might have
What I had to do.
You had my
the others.
Mine too. Okay, so I wanted this quote from one of the commentators. I thought it helped me sort of wrap my head around this whole situation. That the flesh and blood of David was transformed by later biblical authors, because remember, Chronicles repeats the story of David, but in a very cleaned up version. It does not include Bathsheba. It doesn't include Uriah's murder. It doesn't include the rape of Tamar or the rebellion by Absalom.
Wow.
So it's
None of the
really-
bad stuff.
Yeah, none of the bad stuff. It's a very cleaned up version. So anyhow,
Hmm.
so it was transformed by and Chronicles was written, they think, several hundred years later, right? By later biblical authors, from an earthly king evolves into a celestial king, and then into a messianic icon. And that is why he remains the touchstone of theology throughout the Bible.
Because he was messy.
Because he was messy. That's
Wow.
Very good.
right.
So revisionist history, essentially.
Yeah,
talking about
the
revisionist
mythology
history, yeah.
takes on,
Yeah.
over time, he's taken on different levels of meaning.
Yeah, and even cleaning up his story in Chronicles. I mean, that's revisionist history. So,
Okay, what was the timeline where David lived?
About 1000
Okay,
BC.
the turn of the century, basically, turn of the millennium.
Yeah.
millennium.
Well, no, so about 3,000 years
Yes.
ago. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
of that millennium.
Yeah, that millennium. Yeah, 1000 BC.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, so it was before Babylon.
right.
Okay,
So, yeah,
I learned a lot during this.
yeah,
The parts I stayed awake for.
we appreciate that. All
It's
right,
harder when there's just this many people.
Now, here's the other thing that really got me is that the story of David's death, and we'll get into how old he was as part of what we read today. But he was about the age that we are now.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Nice knowing y'all.
And actually, for that time, that would have been old. I mean,
Yeah,
not many people made it
Oh, yeah.
to our age
Oh, yeah.
Right.
2,000 years ago.
and remember, in Absalom's, I think it was Absalom's rebellion, David wanted to get out there and battle, and his staff or whatever was like, no, you need to stay here. You need
Yeah.
to stay here. So anyhow, so First Kings, if somebody would like to read first chapter verses 1 through 10.
First Kings, what chapter?
1. Yeah, no,
I'll take it.
now it's thought that these passages about David's old age and death were written by there's different debates by the scholars, the biblical scholars, whether this was written by the same folks that wrote Samuel, or somebody else.
Okay.
So Solomon here. So verses 1 through 10.
All right. King David was now a very old man, and although his servants covered him with blankets, he could not keep warm. So his officials said to him, "Your Majesty, let us find a young woman to stay with you and take." I like these young people. Sorry. I like these servants.
Just keep it in.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, so the official said to him, "Your Majesty, let us find a young woman to stay with you and take care of you. She will lie close to you and keep you warm." A search was made all over Israel for a beautiful young woman, and in Shunem, they found such a woman named Abishag.
Yeah, sounds good.
And brought her to the king. She was very beautiful and waited on the king and took care of him. But he did not have intercourse with her. That's pretty blunt. Now that Absalom was dead, Adonijah, the son of David, with Haggith, was the oldest surviving son. He was a very handsome man. David had never reprimanded him about anything, and he was ambitious to be king. He provided for himself chariots, horses, and an escort of 50 men. He talked with Joab, whose mother was Zeruiah, and with Abiathar, the priest, and they agreed to support his cause. But Zadok the priest, Benaiah son of Jehoiada, Nathan the prophet, Shammai, Rai, and David's bodyguards were not on Adonijah's side. One day, Adonijah offered a sacrifice of sheep, bulls, and fattened calves at Snake Rock near the spring of Enrogel. He invited the other sons of King David and the king's officials who were from Judah to come to his sacrificial feast. But he did not invite his half-brother Solomon, or Nathan the prophet, or Benaiah, or the king's bodyguards. So
another sign.
you guys can come with me. You guys,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
The rest of you, Solomon, yeah.
Pound sand.
Yeah. So, all right. So Abishag, the latest concubine, she comes back as part of the story. Adonijah, as far as what he does. So here we go again.
We're in the soap opera.
Yeah. So if somebody would read 11 through the end of the chapter. All right. So because Adonijah, he's just setting himself up. He's running around doing all the stuff, make himself big and important. So here we go. So here's what happens next as far as David finding out about this. And Nathan and Bathsheba. All right, Bathsheba is back in the picture now.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Then Nathan said to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, have you not heard that Adonijah, son of Haggith, has become king, and our Lord David does not know it? Now therefore come, let me give you advice so that you may save your own life and the life of your son Solomon. Go in at once to King David and say to him, did you not, my lord the king, swear to your servant, saying, your son Solomon shall succeed me as king, and he shall sit on my throne? Why then is Adonijah king? Then while you are still there speaking with the king, I will come in after you and confirm your words. So Bathsheba went to the king in his room. The king was very old. Abishag the Shunammite was attending the king. Bathsheba bowed and did obeisance to the king, and the king said, what do you wish? She said to him, my lord, you swore to your servant by the Lord your God, saying, your son Solomon shall succeed as king, and he shall sit on my throne. But now suddenly Adonijah has become king, though you, my lord the king, do not know it. He has sacrificed oxen, fatted cattle, and sheep in abundance, and has invited all the children of the king, the priest Abiathar, and Joab, the commander of the army. But your servant Solomon he has not invited. But you, my lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you to tell them who shall sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Otherwise it will come to pass when my lord the king sleeps with his ancestors that my son Solomon and I will be counted offenders. While she was still speaking with the king, the prophet Nathan came in. The king was told, here is the prophet Nathan. When he came in before the king, he did obeisance to the king and with his face to the ground. Nathan said, my lord the king, have you said Adonijah shall succeed me as king and shall sit on my throne? For today he has gone down and sacrificed oxen, fatted cattle, and sheep in abundance, and has invited all the king's children, Joab, the commander of the army, and the priest Abiathar, who are now eating and drinking before him and saying, long live King Adonijah. But he did not invite me, your servant, and the priest Zodab, and Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, and your servant Solomon. Has this thing been brought about by my lord the king, and you have not let your servants know who should sit on the throne of my lord the king after him? I have done my duty. Mark that one off.
All right. Cassie, would you?
Sure, I'll do, how
Finish
much
to the end of, through 37.
337, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So let me throw in just one sort of trivia
Okay.
fact. Abiathar, who is the priest who's with Adonijah,
Mhm.
he is the last person left in this whole scenario from Eli. Remember,
Oh.
Eli was the priest that preceded Samuel.
yeah,
Yeah, he's the last person left in this whole scenario from the very beginning of First Samuel. Because that's how First Samuel started out, was the story of Eli.
Yeah.
And his two
his two,
sons
Sons
that were, unworthy
Run and
and
Mark,
stuff.
yeah.
Right.
Huh.
That led to then Samuel becoming priest, and his two sons weren't worth much. People said, no, we've had it with this. We want a king rather than judges.
interesting.
So, all right. So verse 28 through 37.
King David answered, summon Bathsheba to me. So she came into the king's presence and stood before the king. The king swore, saying, as the Lord lives, who has saved my life from every adversity, as I swore to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, Your son Solomon shall succeed me as king, and he shall sit on my throne in my place. So will I do this day. Then Bathsheba bowed with her face to the ground and did obeisance to the king, and said, May my lord King David live forever. King David said, Summon to me the priest Zadok, the prophet Nathan, and Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. When they came before the king said to them, Take with you the servants of your lord, and have my son Solomon ride on my own mule, and bring him down to Gihon. There let the priest Zadok and the prophet Nathan anoint him king over Israel. Then blow the trumpet and say, Long live King Solomon. You shall go on following him. Let him enter and sit on my throne. He shall be king in my place. For I have appointed him to be ruler over Israel and over Judah. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, answered the king, Amen. May the Lord, the God of my Lord, the God of the king, so ordain. As the Lord has been with my Lord the king, so may he be with Solomon, and make his throne greater than the throne of my Lord King David. You want me to stop there?
Yeah, yeah. So that's how Solomon becomes king.
Yeah.
Nathan goes to Bathsheba and says, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
So how about you go to David? You tell him, I'll come in, I'll back you up. And
Subterfuge.
Lots of wheeling and dealing.
so I can see Bathsheba, I can picture, she's got some gray in her hair. She's, stately wife of the king,
Yeah.
Wife number 37. Wife number 37.
I know, but she's the one that's got the power and the influence right now, apparently. So, yeah.
But she's got some dirt on David.
You got that secret scroll hidden somewhere. Somewhere there's a scroll that has name all over it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
The other trivial thing that I want to throw in, this guy, Benaniah, all right, son of Jehoiada, answered the king, verse 36. Amen. May the Lord, the God of my Lord the king, so ordain as far as Solomon becoming king. He is a Philistine. He's like head of David's guards, protecting David. But he is part of and we're going to get in this in verse 38, the Cherethites and the Pelethites, they're Philistine mercenaries. And remember, David, long ago, made this alliance with the Philistines, who were their enemies.
Yeah.
And the Philistines covered that area that's now Gaza, that we now refer to as Gaza. And so, anyhow, so David's had this loyal following from Philistine all these years. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just an interesting thing. And then Joab, who has been intensely loyal to David, is on Adonijah's side. Sounds weird. Yeah. So we'll see what happens to Adonijah. To Joab.
Threw a big party.
Huh?
He threw a big party, and a bunch of sacrifices, fed everybody.
Yeah, Adonijah did.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
But Joab got out there. There were a bunch of really serious murders. He was big into killing people by gutting them.
Who?
Joab did.
Oh, Joab, yeah.
Yeah. So some of the most gruesome stories that had to do were Joab, and who felt like people were not being loyal to David.
Yeah.
So.
But also, you could see why Joab might think that Adonijah would be the chosen successor, because he's, as I understood it, he's the oldest surviving son, and that would have traditionally he would have been.
Yeah, but he didn't go to David and said, "Hey."
Yeah.
He just did it.
He just did it without.
Yeah. So, anyhow, all right. You want to read? All right. How about if you read 38 through the end of chapter 1? Okay.
38. So Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaniah son of Jehoiada, and the Cherethites and the Peletites went down and had Solomon mount King David's mule, and they escorted him to Gihon. Zadok the priest took the horn of oil from the sacred tent and anointed Solomon. Then they sounded the trumpet, and all the people shouted, "Long live King Solomon." And all the people went up after him, playing pipes and rejoicing greatly, so that the ground shook with the sound. Adonai and all of the guests who were with him heard it as they finished their feast. On hearing the sound of the trumpet, Joab asked, "What's the meaning of all the noise in the city?" Even as he was speaking, Jonathan, son of Abiathar, the priest, arrived. Adonai said, "Come in. A worthy man like you must be bringing good news." "Not at all," Jonathan answered. "Our Lord King David has made Solomon king. The king has sent with him Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benai son of Jehoiada. And Zadok the priest, and Nathan the prophet.
You're on there. Hold on, Susan. You're on there twice, Nancy, so we're getting feedback. There you are. You're down to 1. Okay. All right.
From there they have gone up cheering, and the city resounds with it. That's the noise you hear. Moreover, Solomon has taken his seat on the royal throne. Also, the royal officials have come to congratulate our Lord King David, saying, "May your God make Solomon's name more famous than yours, and his throne greater than yours." And the king bowed in worship on his bed and said, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has allowed my eyes to see a successor on my throne today." At this, all Adonai's guests rose in alarm and dispersed. But Adonai, in fear of Solomon, went and took hold of the horns of the altar. Then Solomon was told, "Adonai is afraid of King Solomon and is clinging to the horns of the altar. He says, 'Let King Solomon swear to me today that he will not put his servant to death with the sword.' Solomon replied, 'If he shows himself to be worthy, not a hair of his head will fall to the ground. But if evil is found in him, he will die.' Then King Solomon sent men, and they brought him down from the altar. And Adonai came and bowed down to King Solomon, and Solomon said, 'Go to your home.'"
Wow. So during all this happening, David apparently is infirm enough that he doesn't even get out of his bed to worship. He stays in his bed. And so,
With his young honey.
We're torn.
No, she's just like a blanket.
That's, yeah.
not the
Okay.
effective one. He didn't warm up. So anyhow, so Adonijah is having this big party, and that's still going on, and Solomon's being appointed by David to be king, and all this, and Adonijah, so he goes to the altar and grabs the horns of the altar. That horns of the altar will come back in another part of the story.
Uh-oh.
All right. So Solomon's like, "Oh Lord,"
They got pointy tips.
I guess that's the idea, like, where it's a sanctuary. If you're holding on to that altar,
Yeah. Nobody's gonna do anything to me while I'm on this extremely sacred piece of,
Until I really.
So Solomon says, "Just go home. just go home."
It's not.
Yep. So, alrighty. So I'll read chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. All right. So David's time to die drew near, and he drew his son Solomon, and he charged his son Solomon, saying, "I am about to go the way of all the earth. Be strong, be courageous, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, so that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever you turn. Then the Lord will establish his word that he spoke concerning you. If your heirs take heed to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and with all their soul, there shall not fail you a successor on the throne of Israel." So that's going back to 1 Samuel 7. "Moreover, You know also that Joab, son of Zeruiah, you know what he did to me, how he dealt with the two commanders of the armies of Israel, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether, whom he murdered, retaliating in time of peace for blood that had been shed in war, and putting innocent blood on the belt around my waist and on the sandals on my feet. Act, therefore, according to your wisdom. Do not let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace. Ooh.
Mine says you must not let him die a natural death.
All righty. Deal loyally, however, with the sons of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table. For with such loyalty they met me when I fled from your brother Absalom. There is also with you Shimei, son of Gera, a Benjamite from Bahurim. Remember, Saul was a Benjamite, right? Who cursed me with a terrible curse on the day when I went to Mahanaim. But then he came down to meet me at the Jordan. I swore to him by the Lord, I will not put you to death with the sword. Therefore, do not hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man. You will know what you ought to do to him, and he must bring his gray head down to the blood of Sheol. So everybody's old now.
Yeah.
Then David slept with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. The time that David reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his kingdom was firmly established. So there's the end of David. If you're saying, though, I'm done with I'm done with Joab.
It's just next man up.
Yeah. All right. So
Interesting that he leaves Solomon to clean up his dirty work, though. I mean, if he felt that way about Joab, he
Joab.
could have taken care of it himself. You know, instead he passes.
when we read these stories, but want this all to be a reasonable story.
Yeah.
But this part may very well have been written by a whole different person than or a group of people, whatever, that wrote.
Well, part of ruling is a country or a people is you have most people admire you, adore you, like you, think, but you have some that you have to kind of rule them through fear and through judgment. And maybe this was the storyteller's way of saying Solomon's going to establish to everybody that he is willing to make these kind of judgmental calls early.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he does it early, people tend to fall in line.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so wait till you hear what Adonijah does next.
Oh, okay. Maybe I spoke too soon.
See what Adonijah does. Yeah, Solomon said, just go home. Just go home.
But does he?
No.
No, he's not smart enough.
Then Adonijah, son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba. Adonijah, son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. She asked, do you come peaceably? Because remember, they were fearful that he was going to try to kill them. And he said, peaceably. And he said, may I have a word with you? She said, go on, in her stately, wife of the king, aura. Then he said, you know that the kingdom was mine and that all Israel expected me to reign. However, the kingdom has turned about and become my brother's, for it was his from the Lord. And now I have one request to make of you. Do not refuse me. She said to him, go on. He said, please ask King Solomon, he will not refuse you, to give me Abishag, the Shunammite, as my wife. Whoa. Right, remember the concubines were property of the king. Remember the 10 concubines, you know?
But the king
Like
never had
David's, and then there was something
I'll
else.
take a concubine.
Ah, the good old days.
But David is dead at this point, right?
David is dead, so theoretically she's Solomon's, I'm guessing. I don't,
Oh, I see.
yeah, but you know, so the concubines, even though they're prostitutes, basically, or in function, they are considered to have a real value. So Bathsheba said, "Very well, I will speak to the king on your behalf." So Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him on behalf of Adonijah. The king rose to meet her and bowed down to her. And then he sat on his throne and had a throne brought for the king's mother, and she sat on his right. Then she said, "I have one small request to make of you. Do not refuse me." In my mind, I'm like, what? And the king said to her, "Make your request, my mother, for I will not refuse you." She said, "Let Abishag the Shunammite be given to your brother Adonijah as his wife." King Solomon answered his mother, "And why do you ask Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom as well, for he is my elder brother, and the priest Abiathar and Joab son of Zeruiah are on his side." Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, "So may God do to me, and more also, for Adonijah has devised this scheme at the risk of his life. Now, therefore, as the Lord lives, who has established me and placed me on the throne of my father David, and who has made me a house as he promised, today Adonijah shall be put to death." So King Solomon sent Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. He struck him down and he died.
Who did he kill?
Payback's their hell.
You should have known.
Yeah, so Adonijah is dead.
That's what
So we're assuming that Solomon would have inherited King David's concubines. I mean, that would be the only reason I can think of that he'd be so offended by this
Well,
request.
right, he's saying that,
Yeah.
saying, you know, you might as well ask for the throne
Yeah.
as like your request. It's a
Right.
wonder he didn't kill Bathsheba too.
That's his mother.
His mother, who he puts, you know, has a throne
He
brought
killed
in.
brothers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my mom always has a second place.
Well,
Who would he
she
give
might be
Mother's,
the one who's actually ruling right now.
who would he give Mother's Day cards to if he killed her?
Well, the next segment is about Joab's death.
One by one.
Yeah, so Joab is put to death.
This is the original.
It's gotta be getting
Yeah.
all dead.
Yeah, he's right here too. Yeah, because David says, "Do not let Joab's gray head go down to Sheol in peace." So Solomon fulfills his dad's instructions and has Joab killed. If you want to read it, go on. And so chapter 2 is generally considered the end of David's story. It ends the last verse of chapter 2. So the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. And then Solomon, chapter 3, he goes and makes a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter as his wife. I don't know. So anyhow, I wanted to share with you guys one of the things that I read because I have felt so confused during all this. Why is all this in the Bible? Why did David do all this stuff? We're not the only ones that are confused. All right.
Well, I figured that out.
At issue throughout is not only the nature of human existence, but the mysterious and often troubling role of the divine. God is manifest through direct speech. So in David's story throughout Samuel, there's God shows himself through direct speech, prophets' messages, the casting of lots, meteorological phenomenon. What was that? Oh, there was a big storm. I don't know, there was something weird that happened. Astounding coincidence. And
Well, plagues and
yeah, there at the end of chapter
Plagues.
24, there were plagues. Yeah. The possessing of characters by prophetic or evil spirits. Yeah, I remember there were the witches at one point. A God who is clearly independent of human will, nevertheless shows surprising receptivity to human actions, continually adapting to make the best of unfolding events, showing favor and disfavor at will for reasons not altogether clarified. Such characterization of God may reflect lingering ancient understandings of the divine as powerful, immortal, but not necessarily irreproachable, and can be fitted to later Christian understandings only uneasily.
Hey, it's okay for me to do all this. God told me, go do that. I'm gonna go murder this.
Right. So I thought that was like, you know, when the commentator write that, hey, this is just hard.
Well, it's very much like, you know, any ancient religion, whether you're looking at Egyptian religions or Greek and Roman religions, their gods they're very much human beings with supernatural powers. They're petty, they're mean spirited, they're all those things. And jealous, envious, wrathful, you know,
Right.
vengeful. I mean, they're all those things. And
So when you say you want to be godlike, you could,
yeah, that's true.
So it's, you know, humanity trying to figure God out.
When was this first written down, or first put together for the Jews?
Nobody really knows.
See, my thinking is that they came up with a group of rabbis came up with a story, and then each time as it got transferred to the next generation, they said, "Oh, those 7 things are pretty neat. Let's add an 8, and let's add a 9." And it was just a built story.
Right, because that is, because Samuel was originally written in one piece. And it was on one scroll in Hebrew.
Okay.
Then when it was translated into Greek, the Greek Hebrew Bible was translated Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek by Jews in Egypt in about 200 BC. So that's when it became first and second Samuel, because Hebrew has no vowels. So in Greek there are vowels. So it took more space. So it got broken up into 2 scrolls then. And Kings was the same way. So Samuel was really, they said it's one of the most corrupt in the sense that the pieces are not all logical. It's, you know, there's different styles of writing. But some transcripts have this, some don't, you know, that kind of stuff. So, and if you read the Septuagint, I meant to go back because the New English Bible is a translation of the Septuagint. So to go back and read it, because some of it's going to be different from the Septuagint than it does from the Hebrew. So, yeah, so you're right.
Just adding things, and why would they add things? Just for to control and influence the next generation.
Yeah, they have their own agenda.
They have their own agenda. That the cynic in me says that's how this was all put together.
You want to raise your children right, you have to have a great Bible.
That is the cynic in you. Very good.
You're reading some of those names, and I'm thinking of geodes and different names. The names that remind me. Vegemite is something you eat, but there's a Benjamites, these all these ites. Absolute stones and jewels, whatever.
Another thing another point that was made is about the historical accuracy, or just really whether David really was a person. And there is the only place that there's any written description about David is the Bible. Even though other societies and countries around them did keep written records, there aren't any. In 1993, however, in an archaeological dig in North Israel, they did find this piece that had the word David on it. And they ended up finding a couple more pieces. Huh?
The Dead Sea Scrolls.
No,
No,
it was
they're
in the
40s.
40s. Yeah, that was in the 40s. This was in 1993. It's called Tel Dal. Tel Dal was the ancient name of the city, and the current name of it is Tel Dal. So they found a couple pieces of it and put it together, and it seems to refer to the history of David. So that's the only thing. But one of the commentators made the point that we're spinning our wheels if we try to find archaeological evidence of David.
So we'll scrap and sit smoking, David.
The power of history is in the mythology of it.
I just got a copy of the book translation of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was at food pantry in my church, and there's a bunch of books to give away.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see
Yeah,
what they said.
because the Dead Sea Scrolls are, there are some pieces that they're the oldest copies, oldest segments of Old Testament writing. There's some other things like from the Essenes that supposedly are pretty out there, It's we're part of, in my mind, we're part of this ongoing journey, ongoing process. Obviously, to figure out God, and I appreciate that we're in this together. As frustrating as it is, and hopefully worrisome and at times joyful.
And as we continue next year, if you have any ideas
Yeah.
about what you would like to study, let us know, because I'm sure in the next month and a half or so, we'll be getting together and trying to decide what,
Knocking our heads together and see
what we want to do next year.
Yeah, so we really, we say this every year, but we're honest about this.
Yeah.
We're really,
I think it would be good to do one of the books of the New Testament for the contrast, because I just, as we were reading this, I was just struck over and over and over again about how different Christ approaches things relative to David and all of David's.
yes, I didn't think about what, because I thought that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when you think about
one
the Jewish community and the Christian community, and the God of the Jewish community, and what they study and what they believe, versus Christian community, it's two different gods. It's almost like, this God deals with it this way. Jesus is coming and saying, no.
Well, the God that we read in the Old Testament
Yes,
is different.
yes,
different.
that's what I'm.
They're
that's
one
what-
of
and the Jewish people are the Old Testament, right?
Right, they are, but I think Judaism has evolved too. This was a delightful experience I had by accident during the pandemic.
But what Judaism was at Jesus's time,
Yes,
when he was,
yes.
saying,
that?
I'm really, I'm here for the Jewish people, but the Jewish people, a lot of them rejected it. And so, it's like, how do you know? Because we read and are comforted by the message of Christ, and versus, I know that Bernie has said multiple times, I don't like that Old Testament. You
All
know,
right, that's not the path in my mind, we're supposed to follow.
Right.
Right,
That's why
exactly.
Christ came to the earth. Was to change how we are to live.
Exactly.
And, part of this
and
world.
yet when Jesus starts his ministry, it's all based on fulfilling what's in the Old Testament. He said, I didn't come here to abolish the law, I came to fulfill it.
Yeah.
You know, to fulfill the promises.